And I'm here with Carlos Rivas, and he is the Director of Fitness and Wellness at Performance here in Louisville, Kentucky. And as you notice, we're actually in the gym and people are working out behind us. And you know, it's the new year. People want to start taking care of themselves, and we've actually done some work together. We've done a lot of talking on yoga, intermittent fasting, and high-intensity interval training. So I thought, what a great person to talk to on this matter, because we had a great talk about how yoga is beneficial in more ways than a lot of people think, because a lot of people here use weights, but a lot of people use resistance, and that's why I like yoga, and a lot of people do, because you're using your own body weight as resistance. But the meditative side of yoga is also a big benefit as well. So let's talk a little bit about what you see in your side of things of yoga and how it's beneficial and why people should be doing it.
Absolutely. Yoga, for one of the things that we see as beneficial as strength training, is the meditative side, as you mentioned. And we like it because people are not having to sit there and just deep breathe, because for some people that becomes a little anxious. So as you're moving, that kind of relaxes the person. So we love yoga as a meditative form of exercise. And one of the things that it does is reduces cortisol, which we love as an exercise physiologist.
Ah, now that's a magical word, because we talked about this. I was reading about it the other day on the web, is that if you're not familiar with cortisol, what happens is when you get stressed out, cortisol builds up and it all goes into your gut. Is that correct? Gut, hips?
Part of it, what cortisol does is there to protect us as we're stressed. And most people are living in a stressed state throughout the whole day. So cortisol dumps up blood sugar into the bloodstream for you to use to either fight or flight. However, most of the people are just sitting throughout the day, and therefore there's no exercise happening. There's no fleeing or fighting. They're just sitting and resting.
Right, so if you're sitting at your desk all day and you're in a very stressful situation, boom, that cortisol buildup's coming in because you're stressing out. I mean, so some of the things I've told people is that, you know, if you're sitting at your desk, just close your eyes, do some deep breathing exercises. Would something like that help in that environment?
Absolutely. Deep breathing is a tremendous beneficial help, because then you go and tap into your parasympathetic system, which relaxes you. So you learn to relax instead of, you know, if you notice, if you're mindful of your body throughout the day as you're stressed, the heart rate is going up faster, and you're doing some shallow breathing. So just doing some deep breathing will help you go to the parasympathetic system.
Which turns off the cortisol?
Which turns off the stress response, which turns off the cortisol. The cortisol is so bad because it's good and bad. The bad part is that it dumps blood sugar and fatty acids into the bloodstream so that you can do some work. Like I said, it's great if you're fleeing from some bad thing. But it's bad if there is no fleeing and you're just at your desk sitting there and there's no exercise being done, because then the blood sugar and fatty acids are inside the artery, and then that's how clogs start to happen.
So like something like sitting at your desk, deep breathing, or even as we discussed, what about if someone's in an office environment and they just said, okay, I take a break, they walk away from the desk and they just take a little walk, you know, maybe they just take a walk around the street, or maybe just in their office for a couple minutes. I mean, does something like that help?
Absolutely.
Or deep breathing with the walking?
Both are helpful, even if it's just walking. So if a person isn't familiar with deep breathing because they're in a stressed out world, then just a simple walk will help. And most of the research that we're seeing is that 1 to 2 minutes of just getting out of that chair and moving actually helps with bringing the stress response down.
So it's not really doing anything other than just removing yourself from that situation.
Moving is really the key, and this is why you and I talked about flow yoga.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of flow yoga because it gets the body moving, and it gets you in that meditative state. So we're getting exercise, and we're getting cortisol levels going down.
So yeah, because like in the flow yoga, or even more important, like what I'm doing now with the high yoga, is that in the high yoga you actually do have that burst, but then you have that quiet spot. And the same thing with the flow yoga, it's more of a meditative flow, but then you'll have some things where, let's say you're holding a crow pose, which is all upper body strength. You know, then at that point, you know, it's a whole different thing. Then you're focusing on upper body strength, but you're still breathing deep.
Yeah.
I mean, with the yoga practice, it's really, could be 20, 30, even an hour, because in yoga, the whole process is deep breathing, the ujjayi breath. So if you're even doing a basic yoga class for 1 hour, I mean, that's got to really drop the cortisol and really shut it down.
It's very beneficial, and that's one of the things that we like about yoga too, because it does bring that strength training component to it with the body weight, as you mentioned.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because a lot of people, I've been a big proponent of, using other things, but the thing that's excited me the most about yoga is, or even doing some of the high intensity moves, is I can just use my own body weight strength. I mean, when you're doing a down dog or a plank position or a squat, I mean, those are things that are actually within the yoga. I mean, the burpee, as a lot of people are familiar, it's kind of like a sun salutation, but it's kind of like you jump up, you go down, you do a push-up, you stand back up, come back down. And that, from what I've read, I mean, that's probably one of the best things that you can do for upper body strength and burning fat.
Absolutely. You work on so many different things. You work on strength, coordination, balance, and most of the people in the general population need that balance and coordination, because they don't, just getting up and down from the floor is a big task for some people. So that's where we are big proponents of yoga, along with strength training. We like to mix it up so that people don't become bored with one component.
So then, because with yoga, the thing that I like is that you get your strength building. Some of the yoga is just basic hatha yoga, just good stretching.
Yes.
And then power yoga or flow yoga or the high yoga, it's definitely much more body weight intensive. But the best thing about it on both sides of the fence is they can both bring in the deep breathing aspects to bring the cortisol levels down, and it's something where that flexibility comes in, and everybody could use a little more flexibility, I myself included, on a daily basis.
Absolutely, and this is what we're seeing with our clients too, is that we like that movement because it improves flexibility as you move in natural ways. So as you move in natural ways, you actually prevent injuries from happening if you ever decide to do strength training, right? So that's why we're a big, we are positive for both.
Oh yeah. And, so I guess the thing is just for people doing a new year, everybody's always out there doing, I'm going to change, it's going to be a new year. I mean, it's got to become, for me, it's like it's a way of life. My mother, when I was growing up, I mean, back in those days, they were doing the aerobics and all this stuff, but I saw that, and it started changing, and now it becomes a part of my lifestyle, that if I don't get my workout in, it could be a lot of the days I'm not doing our yoga as much anymore. I'm doing a lot of the high yoga. I'm getting 20 minutes in, but I'm doing something that's a no excuse policy. So, what would you tell people about a routine? How many days should they do it? How long should they be doing it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the interesting things that I heard you say is you made it a part of your lifestyle, and you recognize now the benefits of that lifestyle. So what I would say to people that are beginning to think about it is just to do it. However, don't just focus on the how to and what to do. Focus on why you are going to take this form of exercise up, or whatever form of exercise you're going to do for the new year. So think about your why, and that's one of the starting points that I will always ask people. So why are you going to do it?
So why do you want to do yoga? And a lot of people would say, I want more flexibility, I want to de-stress. That would be a why.
That would be a terrific why.
Or the other one would be like, well, I want to gain upper body strength. I mean, like I said, I think with yoga, I don't think that you're going to get big, you're just going to get lean.
Absolutely.
But I think that if someone wants to build a little bit more, then they could say, okay, then maybe I could do a kettlebell workout or something like that, right?
Sure.
Or bands.
Sure, exactly. But going back to the why, and you just said it, is think about why. Think about why you're doing it. A great deal of people, the reason I love yoga and the reason I tell my clients to do yoga is for that meditative purpose and to relieve stress. I am a big supporter of reducing cortisol levels, because all the research that's out there, cortisol levels are extremely high with most people. So yoga is a great form. If you want to relieve stress and increase energy, do yoga.
Now, speaking of that cortisol, is there anything out there, because we know that now meditation, relaxation brings cortisol levels down, is there any food that you could eat in conjunction with this that brings cortisol levels down?
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest foods that increase cortisol levels are going to be your dairy, right? your meat, most meat sources, all processed foods are going to
what about
increase cortisol.
So what about like a lean fish or?
So lean fish decreases cortisol. So fruits and vegetables decrease cortisol. So all the really good foods, all the whole foods out there are going to decrease cortisol levels because your body will definitely utilize the vitamins and minerals and use it as the right fuel.
It's just the processed foods that are bad.
It reduces inflammation. So the processed foods increase inflammation, so therefore cortisol levels stay up. And you're, in essence, stressing the body.
So basically, it's just the old adage, eat healthy.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of like, what are your thoughts on like doing the, like I have a NutriBullet before I came up here. I had, I did some research, and strawberries and blueberries and raspberries are lower in sugar, but they're good for antioxidants. And so I put together this big, thick smoothie shake.
Yeah.
It has all the fiber in it. I mean, that's pure stuff right there.
Absolutely, and those are the best things. So that's going to reduce inflammation and bring down cortisol levels. And what we found is that those foods will actually increase dopamine levels, which is the motivating neurotransmitter. So that gives you motivation. So they're all intertwined. Eating well will help you to do your exercise, and exercise will increase blood flow to the brain, which will help you to eat well. They both go hand in hand.
Yeah. Final question before we move on. Is we've had this discussion before, but I'm a huge, a big wine drinker. Love a glass of red wine, and I only drink red wine because it's good for my heart.
Sure.
But if someone like me or out there, a lot of people do yoga, love red wine. Yeah. And what is a good set number of glasses, which we know it's like 6 ounces,
yes.
5.5 to 6 ounces.
Yes.
It's not a half a bottle.
Yes.
But on a weekly basis, and on a daily basis, what should be a good, safe level for people to drink so it does not mess up their metabolism, because too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing.
Absolutely, and you said it best. It's about 5 ounces, 1 glass of wine.
6 ounces?
1 glass, 5 to 6. 1 glass of wine in the evening just to wind down. It's absolutely good, and that actually brings your parasympathetic levels lower, and that's another good thing about that. Now, as soon as you go over 6 ounces, though, now you're starting to stress out your body, and it becomes toxic.
So then 2 glasses would be bad?
You got it.
I'm sorry.
One glass is better.
1 glass is better. All right. Well, that's good.
Less is better in this case.
Yeah, because I know that when you have the alcohol, the liver has to burn off the alcohol before it can burn off.
Exactly, and that's
foods.
toxic to the liver, so we have to watch it. So that's one that we like simply because, like you said, the antioxidants are high. However, to a certain point, then the alcohol starts offsetting those antioxidants after 2 glasses.
Yeah, that's a bummer. We had the same talk. I'm like, oh, because I love that couple of glasses of wine. Well, Carlos, thank you very much for this. It's been a great opportunity to speak to you about this. And if you have any questions that you would like to send Carlos, the email's right here on the screen. And you can visit his website right here, performance.com.
That's correct. Performanceresults.com.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm here at Heuser Health in Louisville, Kentucky on River Road, and I'm with Dr. Lou Heuser, and we're actually in the gym, and we're actually, I think, getting fit now for the new year.
We've got a class going on as we speak.
And I said, let's just roll with it because, it just adds to the ambiance.
Yeah.
And I always turn to Dr. Lou, not only for health questions, because he is extremely knowledgeable and an extremely nice guy, but he's also extremely knowledgeable on food that can help us to not only lose weight, but to keep us healthier. And one of the big subjects out there right now that everybody's talking about is gluten.
Right.
Will you please give us some information? I'm very familiar with it, but I know you've done a lot of research on it.
Well, I've done some. Gluten is the protein part of wheat. So wheat has 3 different biologic components to it, and all the grasses do. And gluten is the protein component of wheat. And it's also in barley and some other grains as well. What we think that there are a disease called celiac disease. Mm-hmm. These are people that are truly gluten intolerant. They're not exactly allergic to it, but they do make antibodies that react with the gluten molecules and actually destroy the intestinal cells. And these people have terrible diarrhea and gastrointestinal issues if they eat any wheat product. Mm-hmm. Now, there are definite test we can do to confirm that diagnosis. But now there's a little more controversial part of gluten that we think some people are gluten sensitive. They really don't have celiac disease, but the inflammatory reaction that the gluten may create can exacerbate existing diseases like arthritis or heart disease or even hypertension.
So, if someone out there, everybody's always saying, well, wheat's good for you. Wheat's, it's supposed to be good for you. Now they're coming out with this saying that it's bad for you. And so I know there's been a lot of research talking about that some people that I've heard that had issues with it would stop any type of wheat product. And that they noticed that their muscles felt better and they weren't having issues within some sort like that.
Well, that's really, there's no diagnostic test for the gluten sensitivity, so your only choice is to eliminate it and see if you feel better.
Didn't they do? I heard that was it the U.S. Olympic team a few years ago did that. I read about that. I wish I had more information to talk about, but I thought that they removed gluten from their diet so that they wouldn't have any muscular issues or things like that.
Well, and then they added fish oil in addition to getting rid of the gluten because they found at high doses of fish oil they would recover much quicker and they could train harder that way.
So, everybody always looks at the first of the year to get healthier and to do better, and gluten is such a hot topic. You really can't go anywhere into a store without seeing gluten-free. Now, in all cases, we were talking about some bread yesterday, and I said, well, wait a minute, if you're not supposed to be eating wheat, I buy Ezekiel bread, which is sprouted wheat. Now, what is the difference between a sprouted wheat grain and wheat?
Well, I think...
Because is sprouted wheat gluten-free?
Well, I think where we really get into trouble are the highly refined flours, where we remove the fiber that normally comes with the gluten.
Correct.
So when we remove that fiber, that's what sets us up for high doses of gluten and setting off these inflammatory reactions that can exacerbate the arthritis or your heart disease.
Now, some of the people that you've worked with or who have become gluten-free, what did they notice in their life change by doing that, the removal of it completely?
Most of it was improvement in their arthritis and joint pain.
What about their diet? Because I know there's a book out there, and we talked about it the other day. It's called Wheat Belly. They say that that wheat basically gives you the belly a lot of times.
Well, and the food manufacturers are jumping all over this now.
Oh, of course.
General Mills has a whole section now of gluten-free products that people are buying. So there is some virtue, I guess, into removing the gluten if you're sensitive to it.
And for a lot of people out there who are wanting to get into diets, we're going to talk more about dieting and other issues, but is going gluten-free something that's going to be beneficial for your diet? I mean, are you going to notice a change, not only like if you have arthritis issues or maybe muscle issues, because I heard that helps that if you remove the gluten, but is it going to help you to lose weight by going gluten-free?
Well, some people do, because if you think about it, you're cutting out sandwiches.
Right.
By and large, so you start cutting out foods. But not everybody loses weight on a gluten-free diet. That's a misconception.
But it just makes it their body, puts their body in a better space. Would that be what I'm saying?
Well, I think it has to be done on an individual basis.
Right.
I don't think it will help everyone, but I think there are people. I'm trying to go gluten-free. And I haven't, I've been on about 3 weeks now, and my arthritis is the same. I haven't noticed any improvement in it at all.
Now, what is that? We were talking about that. The Ezekiel bread is a sprouted wheat grain. So that's not it doesn't have gluten in it, right?
It does not have the gluten that the grasses do, yeah.
Okay, so it's good to buy, I know that like a Trader Joe's has a sprouted wheat grain, or
and
Ezekiel.
It goes quickly. It comes in on Monday, and by Monday afternoon, it's gone. Yeah.
And then there's another bread out there. It's called, I believe, Udi. Udi is, I think, a gluten-free bread that's out there as well.
Well, quinoa.
Quinoa is a great thing.
That's gluten-free, and you can make breads out of quinoa.
And they say also the great thing about quinoa is that it has huge volume of protein in it. So like one serving has, I don't know, 7 to 10 grams of protein, something like that, or
more than soy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if being that everybody's looking for that, I don't look at the first of the year rolls around and basically I'm still doing
Same thing.
Same thing. Always do. But I do try to change up things. I try to learn a lot about different ways of taking better care of myself, from being gluten-free to a lot of, reading more about intermittent fasting, about high-intensity workouts, yoga, physical workouts. What would be a couple other things, because everybody's trying to burn off those calories they picked up for the holidays, or it could be any time of the year. I mean, what would be some good foods choices? We know that we want to get rid of refined, but what would be some good choices, like it's the first of the year? What would you recommend to someone here at the Heuser Health, something real simple to do, because not everybody's going to be able to do some real intense work? What would you offer as some good tips to take care of yourself, eating right, and maybe doing some simple workout?
One of the things I'm going to do is that for one meal each day, it's going to be a juice meal. So I'm going to juice 5 vegetables and 3 fruits, and I'm going to have that for lunch instead of the Big Mac.
Now, is that going to be a real juice, or is it going to be like a more smoothie, like a NutriBullet or Vitamix? So one keeps the fiber, the other one removes the fiber.
No, we're keeping the fiber in.
So you're doing, I guess, kind of like was it like a Vitamix, a NutriBullet?
I mean, like a smoothie, a fruit vegetable smoothie.
All right. So because that was one thing. That's another great question I want to talk to you about is because with doing a juice, which is great for you, because you're getting all that directly into your system right away, but you also do not gain the benefit of the fiber. So if that's the case, then why should you juice? I mean, it is good for you.
I really don't think you should go on a total juice diet. I really think there's benefit from eating whole foods, but I do think the juicing is a good way to get a super dose of vegetables and fruits in a single meal, and all those vitamins are intact.
Oh yeah.
In the juice. So I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, like, 'cause I'll use the research that I've looked up is like I have like the NutriBullet, so I keep all that in there. Like I've heard like if you use a lot of fruit, make sure that you get the ones that are lowest in sugar but have the best fiber in it. So from what I've seen, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, is strawberries, blueberries, and raspberries.
The berries are really nutrient dense.
Right.
There's a lot of vitamins and very few calories. So I'm a big berry fan.
Right. So it's not a lot of ton of sugar, but if you start adding in mango and pineapple, then you're starting to spike.
More bananas will do the same thing
right.
too. So one of my favorite things to do is, the berries are really expensive. Is when you buy berries, blueberries and blackberries. When mine start to get too ripe, I will make a salad dressing out of that fruit. I'll mix extra virgin olive oil with different flavored vinegars, then add the fruit and put that in the food processor and make my own salad dressing that way.
Oh, that's cool.
And you don't throw those vitamins away then.
Oh, interesting. I have not thought of that yet. So you have olive oil, blueberries, blackberries, whatever.
I mix them together.
And just at that point you can juice them and then just get the juice and then just do it that way.
And if you want to sweeten it, I'll use a little stevia or truvia, which is a natural sweetener but no calories.
Now, I also heard one interesting fact about apples is like the best part of the apple is not actually the apple itself, but it's actually the outside of the apple.
The peel.
The peel, which has the most vitamins and fiber. Is that right?
Well, that's where the lycopenes are, and they're essential compounds that are very vitamin dense. And don't peel the apple. Eat the peel.
Yeah. So I mean, because like a lot of times if I'll do like my NutriBullet, I'll put in spinach or kale. Most times spinach because I like that taste better than strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. And then we'll get into this too. Is I tried a lot of different proteins to put in there, and I tried like the whey protein, but for whatever reason, for me, it gets me bloated, which was a lot of people.
I do the same thing.
And I had to get rid of that type of protein, but I found out an interesting protein that I've been using ever since, and it's a pea protein, which I heard. I was watching Dr. Chaz.
Oh yeah,
and he talked about pea protein, and it's got, I don't know, maybe it's got a lot of protein in it, but the thing that I like the most about it is I don't get bloated.
So your protein sources, whey, which we talked about, which is bloating. Soy is even worse than whey as far as bloating goes. And there's egg albumin, which is very easily tolerated. That doesn't cause any gastrointestinal.
Is that like the white egg protein?
Uh-huh.
And then what are some other ones? I know, like, do you do a lot of the vegetarian proteins or just like the egg proteins? Or?
The plant proteins are very beneficial. not just for women, but for males as well. So the beans, nuts, and legumes are where the proteins are in the plant world.
Now, what is the what kind of protein do you use?
You know, I just eat food.
Okay,
I
so you don't
use
use
any
it.
supplements.
So you don't use it in the shake or anything like that.
No.
And the other thing that I remember a while back, we did some work together, and we talked about different types of like peanut butter and butter and all that. But I don't eat peanut butter anymore since our discussion. Now I only eat almond butter because it's better for me. But because peanut butter, I found this out, is not really a peanut, right? It's a legume. Is that I kind of got confused on it because peanut butter is not really a butter, right?
Well, it's not a tree nut. You know,
Right.
the peanuts grow down in the earth, so it is
Right.
a legume, and it's technically it's not a nut from a tree.
Right. But what are the benefits of like an almond butter? Because what I'll do is I'll have like some almond butter on a piece of the sprouted grain bread.
So where do you get your almond butter? You go to Rainbow Blossom or to
Well, locally,
Trader
or
Joe's?
Trader Joe's, whatever, and just get the almond butter. And I look for, low sugar and things of that nature.
Yeah, what you really want in the almond butter is just almonds.
Right. Well, I
You
mean,
don't
I
want
eat almonds.
any sugar added
Yeah.
to them. Where we get into trouble with peanut butters are the hydrogenated peanut butters. You don't want to eat those. So you only want a natural peanut butter.
Okay, so natural peanut butter. Okay.
Yeah.
So just like a regular peanut butter, stay away from it. It has to say on there natural peanut butter. Then from there, that would be more beneficial.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that going to be as beneficial as like an almond butter?
I think the almonds are a higher quality than peanuts, but I certainly wouldn't take peanut butter off the menu.
So if there is anything that you could tell me, or tell the people out there watching, I mean, what would be the thing that your gut tells you about a new year, a new lifestyle? Because you can't, I'm a firm believer, it's like, okay, New Year's resolutions, diet, do this. I mean, it just has to become a lifestyle, right?
Well, I eat to live. I don't live to eat.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and this guy, he invited me to his New Year's Eve party, and trust me, this guy can move on the dance floor. We had a great time, and
I dance like a bear.
yeah, it was fun. But I mean, it goes to prove that you are in such spectacular health that you take care of yourself.
Well, you're kind. It's an uphill battle. Each decade has its own set of infirmities that you have to live with, but you got no choice.
So, what would be your final thought on? You got a new year in front of you. Here's some ideas.
Well, I think you should try to shoot for 6 hours of vigorous exercise a week. It's an hour a day, 6 days a week. And put that into your schedule. And put it into your schedule just like any other appointment for your exercise.
Now, what if they say, I don't have time to do 1 hour? Can they do 30 minutes, 30 minutes?
Sure.
Break it up anyway?
You can break it up into as many segments as you want.
So breakfast, lunch, dinner?
Sure. I mean, you can do 3 10-minute sessions. I'd rather you do 6 10-minute sessions, but what's the best time to exercise? When you have time to exercise.
So, I mean, let's say in the morning you wake up and it would be like you could do a vigorous workout, then at lunch, would you consider like walking at lunch to be a part of that?
Yeah, well, what we've found, and some studies I've seen, people that exercise vigorously tend to be sedentary the rest of the day. So they don't get their workout in, they don't tend to move much anymore. So that's why I like devices like my Jawbone here that keeps me moving all day long.
Because you want to get those 10,000 steps in.
Well, I'm shooting for 15, so
nice.
trying to get
that's
those.
A lot.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
That's cool.
So I try to keep moving all day long. And the next thing I'm going to get is a treadmill desk for my office.
I've heard about those.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly standing, but it moves like 1 or 2 miles an hour.
Right.
But
Just
you're
1 mile
constantly
an hour.
moving.
Yeah. I've seen some people lose incredible amounts of weight just having a treadmill for their office.
I remember a friend of mine worked in her office, and she didn't have that, but she had the desk raised up, and she stood the entire day.
She stood there, yeah.
So that she could walk around. And she did have like a stool, but 90% of the time when we were there in the meeting, I mean, she constantly moved or walked around, but she was in peak physical condition.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very simple things, but it becomes a part of your lifestyle.
Well, think how many meetings in a week you have where you're sitting for 1 or 2 hours at a time in a meeting. Boy, wouldn't it be great if you had a treadmill that you could be walking on while you're having that meeting? And I think you'll start seeing that more and more in boardrooms and conference rooms, where instead of a chair and a table, you're going to have a treadmill and a desk.
That'd be very cool. I hope that day comes really soon.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, if you have any questions for Dr. Heuser, you can send him, what's your email and what's your website?
It's heuserhealth.com.
Okay. Well, you can go there, and then what's your email address, because I'll give that to them as well.
Mine is Dr. Heuser at heuserhealth.com.
Great. Well, thank you for your never-ending knowledge, because it's always fun to talk to you.
Always fun.
All right.